All right. Well, might as well get started. And I don't think I'm going to need that. All right. So, just a quick recap on everything that happened last session. You all addressed a bunch of questions and issues you had with each other. Came to a rough consensus about information that you wish to share and wish to keep hidden, and who to share it with and who to keep it hidden from. Elbrig found himself a mentor in Deviris, who also gave him, by use of her name, permittance into the Sapphire Citadel, where he was allowed entry and permittance into certain classes, lectures, and sit-ins, and also provided Elbrig with a starting out basic level but advanced course of understanding magic and improving it, and seeks to continue teaching him as best she can. Excuse me. There was some great event with Orbix that seemed to have occurred previously, and Tyrell has yet to mention anything about it to the rest of the party. But it did seem to weigh quite heavily upon him and impacted him greatly. And aside from that, Tyrell and Nomad decided to follow after Elbrig's lead, and Tyrell asked Oris for help with some kind of martial training or any kind of tutelage, to which she drunkenly accepted, led them all over, or led the two of them over to a fighting pit slash dueling pit in the military ring, and proceeded to stab Tyrell 4 times, and then looked at Nomad and angrily shouted into his tin can and knocked the both of them out. Aside from that, Tyrell had spent his day going about trying to ask questions and get updates and just gather whatever information he was seeking. Nomad and Misted had encountered a rather upset man in the merchant's ring, ranting, raving, and shouting from atop a box about the cruelties and misdeeds and lack of courage and cowardice that is running rampant in the Grey Plains. And called for justice against lawkeeper Yarrow, who is the lawkeeper over the Grey Plains, before he was quickly dismounted from his box and walked out of the city gates. And in passing of this conversation, Misted and Nomad both noticed a cloaked individual quietly making his way through the crowd, and passed by the two of them without so much as a word, and just continued walking towards the upper rings, before just simply disappearing into the crowd and into the city. all these wonderful, chaotic events came to a close as the evening began to wear in, and as everyone began to settle in, Mistid sought out advice and perhaps some kind of guidance from her mentor, the Queen, Sinfori, where without even a single spoken word between the two, were able to share their thoughts with each other. And with Mistid sharing her thoughts with Sinfori, Sinfori seemed to understand the gravity of the situation and also seemed to understand the delicacy that needed to be approached in this before revealing her thoughts to Mistid as well, revealing that the queen is actually with child. How that may have come about, no real telling just yet. But everyone began to wind down, and I believe you said Elbrig had gone back to the room to continue working with the alchemy set and practicing and reading and whatnot, correct?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And as the session was coming to a close, we left off on the drowning silence that was overtaking the city of Abcassis. It's about 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the afternoon at this point, was suddenly very abruptly shattered by a blood curdling scream coming from within the city that was heard throughout every room, every hall, every building. And that is where we left off. So I ask of you, dear Elbrig, what would you like to do? You have just heard this blood curdling, soul rending scream come from outside in the city.
Totally and utterly love to fucking ignore it. But I know most of my friends don't do it, and I have been adventuring for a while now. So plus we're staying here, so if it's not taken care of by somebody, it'll get to me eventually. So it's quickly. I'm not gonna just rush out there because anyway, we're gonna go ahead and quickly strap on Samson's armor, which since it's meat, I believe light armor takes 5 minutes, I think.
Mm-hmm. Light armor. Yes, it can be donned in about 5 minutes.
So uh, we help Sam, and then normally this might go quicker if there was like if it was a person and I was being the quote unquote squire, but since this is me and Samson, it takes a full 5 minutes as I help Samson get ready. Then once we're nice and protected as much as it can be, I'll hop onto Samson and we will go and cautiously investigate soul rending strains.
All right.
Yay!
Riding off to glory. Onward, Silva. But easy enough. You get Samson all geared up, and he's quite happy to be going on another adventure, even if it's just throughout the city. But hop on Samson and you make your way out, and you see several of the guards are kind of shaking, like the ones that are standing outside your door and down the halls are just kind of not like shaking in fear, but just the I like turning in place and then returning back to their spot and then turning in place. Like I want should we probably no, and then they kind of see you begin to go by and they're like, okay, uh, we'll we'll hold the fort down here, and you make your way out the front gates, well down the stairwells and into the lobby, and you see there's a bunch of people there that are murmuring to each other, whispering, and no one really seems to be wanting to actually investigate, aside from a few of the guards that have already pushed through and seem to be making their way there in quite a bit of haste. And you, following after the guards, I would assume you would make your way into what is the residential district, the residential ring of Abcassis. And it doesn't take too terribly long. You follow the guards as they look side to side and looking around and follow after them, and eventually come up to a rather large gathering of civilians and guards in a ring on the inside, kind of keeping everyone back and motioning for everyone to just step back, step back. It is return to your homes. Just go about your business. Just leave. You don't want to. This is not a public spectacle. And as you kind of make your way there, this is what you see. Just a large gathering of people, bunch of people whispering. One unfortunate elderly lady seems to have taken this to quite a bit of shock and is in the process of heaving the contents of what would probably be her lunch, maybe her dinner. And there's a few of the guards that are trying to escort other people away, and they're just trying to turn people away and not make it a bigger spectacle than it already is. But from where you're sitting, you can't really see through the crowd to see what's actually going on.
Can't really see what's going on. Guard telling everybody to leave. Is there any higher area I can get to that will give me the view?
Nearby, there looks to be what would be a steps leading up, like a staircase that leads up around the outside of one of the structures here, one of the residential buildings. That looks like it might have a platform on the other side that you can reach and see over.
Well, do that.
All right, and Samson leads you up these steps and very carefully, paw by paw, goes up. And as you reach the leveled off section of this balcony, sorry, words are hard right now. As you reach the balcony and manage to look over, you see in the center of this ring is two individuals that are kind of sitting on the ground, being questioned, comforted, something by the guards, by the blood onyx, and laying in the absolute middle of this is a body with just a huge pool of blood completely pouring out of it, and they seem to be face down and are not moving.
So just a singular body face down. That's what they're guarding.
Hmm. And yeah, Elbrig would actually not really recognize who exactly this individual was, but he does recognize the attire on this individual, that this was a lawkeeper.
The lawkeeper. Oh, and then there was a whole box guy. Well, I'm not gonna push myself into the investigation on that. So now that we know it was just, it sounds fucked up. Since it was just a simple murder, at least for now, until we're told otherwise, I think it's nighttime, right?
Yes, evening is quick approaching.
Yeah. Unless we're pulled into this via someone else, we're just gonna go back to our room. This is something for the city guard to take care of.
All right. And as you go to leave and head back, you do see that Oris is walking up with Tyrell and Nomad. And Tyrell and Nomad do not look like they're in good shape.
Uh, there'd be that moment where like I'm turning Samson to go back into the room, and it's like, never mind, turn the other way. Caught up to everyone, and guys, what the hell happened to you? You weren't part of this whole murder thing, were you? Did something happen?
And unfortunately, since they're not here to explain, Uh, I'm gonna take the idea of nomad here, and we'll relay to Elbrig that Tyrell thought it'd be a great idea to have a sparring match with the king. It did not end well.
Ah, right. Wonderful idea. Okay.
In which Oris has already pushed through the crowd and has addressed one of the Blood Onyx there. And she chatters with him for a little bit. And then you see the guard just kind of look to the other guards, look back to her, look to the other guards, look back to her, and then just quietly just shake his head and proceeds to walk over towards Nomad. The Blood Onyx does. And then he just looks at Nomad, nods, and then quite hastily heads off towards the Black Keep. To which Oris then turns about and heads over to Tyrell and Nomad and gives each of them instruction before turning to Elbrig and asking, "Could I have your assistance?"
Of course. Well, then,
And you see her look around, and she just gets a bit closer. "I don't actually have the authority that Sinfori does over the Blood Onyx, so I can't actually command them. It's a, it's a weird law thing. I don't like it. I don't agree with it, but we have to follow it. I need your help. Would you be able to head to the annex, go to the vault, and check on Madris and Eartham, make sure nothing has happened, make sure everything's okay?"
of course, I can.
And she nods and, "Be sure to inform Madris that the lawkeeper of Ixtabanis has been murdered. The city will be locked down. No one is allowed to leave. And hopefully the murderer has not yet fled. But I wish to make sure that they are safe. Thank you, Elbrick." And then she turns to Tyrell and Nomad and begins to discuss something with them.
All right, well, to the vaults.
All right. Sorry, Tyrell and Nomad. Tyrell, my brain is dead. It's okay. But you make your way towards where the guard is heading, and Samson's a bit faster than the Blood Onyx in his pretty heavy armor. So quite easily you catch up, and he's already huffing and puffing while going up all those steps that quickly. And you make your way into the Black Keep again. And do you know the way to the annex?
Wait, what?
Do you know the way to the annex? Does Elbrig know how to get to the annex?
Yeah, I don't think so.
So you
Because
arrive
if
and
it's not by a guard,
you arrive and look a little bit puzzled and like, right, how do I get there? But you do see that there are several of the Blood Onyx and a few Night Fang still standing guard inside, still unsure of what's happened, but they are all kind of looking at you with like a, "The fuck's going on?"
they give me the look of what the fuck's going
Mm-hmm.
on. There's been a murder of a lawkeeper.
At the mention of this, you see all of them just kind of like go wide-eyed and a little bit shocked. And the crowd on the inside starts murmuring a bit more loudly now after having heard this. And you just see them kind of look around and look to each other and, well, that's new.
Oh. Yeah, and I'm told to go to the annex and the vaults to check on the people there, make sure nothing. This wasn't like a distraction or anything.
And you see one of the actual Night Fang just looks over and follow me. Come on. And begins to head towards one of the corridors.
All along.
All right. And the Night Fang is actually walking along at a pretty brisk pace, as seemed to understand what you were getting at with that line of wording. And you go down this long corridor and you start to pass into what looks to be a massive library. And in this library are several people pile or sorry, pawing through old scrolls and books and notes and records and all kinds of information and just seem to be just reading, researching, what have you. Some of them are organizing the material, and you see him. The Night Fang continues past all the books and the bookshelves and all these rows, and goes to a corner of the room that has a locked door. And as the Night Fang walks up, you see him kind of turn the door handle, and then gives it a quick tap tap, and then it unlocks the whole way and opens up, which leads to a spiraling staircase that leads down. Sorry, I'm scrolling through to find the rest of the notes. There it is. Okay. And assuming you're still following him, he would then proceed down this spiraling staircase, and it goes for a ways. You probably go down maybe 4 flights of stairs, equivalent, before you find your first landing. And upon reaching there, there's a member of a some kind of guard, perhaps mercenary group, maybe. You've never really seen this kind of uniform before, this outfit, but it is black and red, similar to the sash that you are now wearing, but is a full-on tunic uh, over top of armor set, like leather armor. Hello, Daniel. And seeing this armor, you can probably assume that this is someone that's meant to protect the annex. And the Night Fang walks up and we have business at the vault. There's been a murder. We're here to investigate and check on things. And you see the other individual looks over the two of you, nods, and then lights a torch, hands it over to Elbrig.
I point at the lantern attached to the dog's collar.
And he
Give it a quick,
smiles.
give it a quick flick, and it lights up.
And he nods and places the torch back. And you are allowed to proceed further down the stairwell, which is probably another 3, 4, maybe 5 flights of stairs, and it is pitch black going down this staircase. Until finally you reach the what looks to be a large landing, and there's a bit more light here, but not substantially a large amount of light. But you do see there's a entryway on into this landing. As you the two or the pair of you walk towards it, you are now in a vast underground library. This thing seems to actually stretch on for possibly a mile or two. And it is wall to wall, floor to ceiling. The ceiling is probably about 20 feet up before you reach the ceiling. And it is just covered with bookshelves, cases, chests, locks, just everything you could possibly imagine. There's walls of weapons, swords, shields, bows, axes, all kinds of things. There's looks to be historical documentation encased in glass, and it looks like a massive museum almost. And pining through some of these artifacts, you see a younger looking individual, a young human man, darker kind of skin, with a peculiar mark on his forehead that Elbrig would recognize instantly as the symbol of Lok, the crown of law. And the Night Fang bears an immediate hard right, and there's a corridor of these bookshelves and all these cases, and he leads you all the way down towards what you can assume would be towards the end of it, before it branches off again, and you see a humongous metal and stone door. And standing in front of it is Madris, the halfling, and Eartham, the half-orc, who seem to be just casually standing guard. And you see the Night Fang stop, turn to you, and I'll wait here.
Hold on up. How's everything going, guys?
And you see Madris is kind of set up in a chair, leaned back a little bit, and is plucking on a lute. And he just kind of leans forward, kicks up, and oh, it's it's another pleasant day in the tomb. At least I got the ray of sunshine here to keep me company. And motions to Eartham, who's just unfazed, unflinching, unmoving, unwavering, just straight deadpan. And he's like, yeah, right. Anyways, yeah, it's just another day, making sure nobody steals nothing till we get our next orders. What brings you down here?
Uh, Coming to check on you. There's been a disturbance up top, so Oris wanted me to come down and make sure everything was okay and it wasn't like a distraction or something. Unfortunately, seems that someone or someone's have struck out against the lawkeeper
And with that, you see,
fatally.
you see the chair just kind of falling, go on all fours, and he's like, "You have my attention."
I don't know too much, just a body and a lot of blood.
You see Magus just kind of look around. Before I get too upset, which lawkeeper was it?
Or something like that.
He just sits there
I
and
had, I don't know how to say his name.
that was the lawkeeper of Ixtabanus.
What?
There was the lawkeeper of Ixtabanus.
It's Ixtabanus, okay.
It is the military might of Vanaru.
Gotcha.
Basically, it is the and again, Elbrig would know this from just world knowledge. Ixtabanus is where the Blood Onyx are recruited, trained, and dispatched. It is the military headquarters of Vanaru. And as such, it is its own. It is part of the Grey Plains by technicality, but Ixtabanus itself is technically actually part of what's called the Crescent Reach, which is its own particular jurisdiction. So it has its own lawkeeper. But the Crescent Reach is home to many of the dwarves of Vanaru. And again, Ixtabanus itself is the military capital of Vanaru. And hearing that it was the lawkeeper of Ixtabanus, Major just kind of looks down and it's a hell of a fucking message to send. But we'll keep our eyes out. Earth, you're not sleeping over there, are you? And you just hear, funny. Good. I'd hate for you to, miss out on anything. And you see him just kind of lean past you and looks at the Night Fang, just, huh, they get younger every year, I swear. And then you hear him call out, "Hey, Proavis! Got some news for you!" And you, as he leans past and calls out, you see the young man, the young human that you just saw, turn the corner and begin to approach. And it takes him a little bit. It's a pretty long distance. But the younger man arrives, and he's the one that has the mark on his forehead. And just, I am quite busy, Magus. What is it? And he just motions to Albriggan. He says, well, the lawkeeper's been killed. Apparently over next to Bonus. Might want to keep your skirt in check there. Someone might be hiding underneath it. And he looks down at his rather flowing robes and looks back at Madras. Ah, your humor never ends, does it? And then proceeds to turn around. Troubling though that is, has nothing to do with me. And walks off.
Okay. Oh, there's that.
And you see
And
Majors.
everything seems fine here.
Majors leans back again. Well, nothing I can do to help a dead guy, but thanks for coming out to tell us. We'll be sure to keep an eye out, and don't worry about the kid. He's grown into the he's grown into the role of Paravis. He'll get used to it.
All right.
And he gives you a small wave, and in halfling says, "Be safe."
Give them the same, and then head on off.
All right. And on your return, the Night Fan looks at you and I'll escort you back up. And proceeds to, if you so choose, proceeds to lead you back up to where you go, or you may spend some time here in the annex, as you do have limited access to
Uh, well, since I'm here,
it.
might as well take a moment or two. So, actually, as much as I appreciate the escort, I'm gonna poke around just a little bit.
Night Fang nods, and I'll be standing by the entrance if you need your way back up.
Mhm.
Honestly, I don't like the stress of being up there right now. So you've given me a way out of that. Appreciate it. And he walks over towards what would be the entrance and proceeds to then just stand guard. Yeah, looking around, it is, like I said, it's a massive, basically, it's a giant underground museum. There are ancient artifacts, scrolls, books, floor to ceiling, wall to wall. Bookshelves lining everything, chests, display cases, tables full of notes and research. Just about anything and everything you could imagine or never imagine. It's possibly here. That's the kind of sensation you get from this place. And it is unusually silent. But more on that in a little bit. Hello, Daniel.
Hi.
Hello, Andrew.
Hello.
Asa, welcome
I
in.
saw.
So,
So, Andrew and I were late because we had to deal with a specific something. Uh, we are under oath to not talk about it thanks to a possible incoming witness protection program involvement.
NDA, gotcha.
So, sorry about that.
You're fine. But, cutting back to where, Elbrig left off and departed from the gathering. The last thing that we had last session was the sound of a blood-curdling, soul-wrenching scream echoing throughout Abcassis, to which I would assume you guys would be responding to, as Oris certainly was. And with some limping, walking, and brushing away, Oris proceeds to follow the flooding of blood onyx and civilians until you all see a gathering of people in the residential ring. And Nomad, probably being slightly taller than most other people, can't really get a good view of what's going on. But you can clearly see there looks to be two people pulled off to the side where Blood Onyx looked to be talking to them, consoling them maybe. Can't really tell. And a body laying face down in just the middle of the road with just a massive pool of blood coming from them. And Tyrrell could probably glimpse through the crowd to see roughly the same thing. But that the two of you also notice Elbrig coming down from a balcony, who explains that, yeah, there's two people over there being handled by the Blood Onyx, and there's a dead dude face down in the road. And that recognizing the outfit, but not the individual, the person who's dead seems to be a lawkeeper. And Oris kind of pushes into the crowd and starts addressing one of the Blood Onyx, who then just kind of nods, looks to her, looks to the others, looks back to her, looks back to the other Blood Onyx, and then just nods and, alright, and quickly hurries off, taking a moment to stop, look at Nomad, nod, and proceed on his way to the Black Keep. To which Oris then turns to Elbrig and asks him of a favor. And Elbrig accepted, which was to bring the news to Madris and Eartham and to check on the vault to make sure that it may be a coincidence, but she doesn't trust coincidence. But that Elbrig agreed and went off and had our thing there before she turns to Nomad and Tyrrell and says, I'm going to need both your helps too.
Nomad would nod and say, of course, this is, certainly not good.
And she nods, and the lawkeeper of Ixtabanus has been murdered. Or, that's at least the thought. But regardless, murder, suicide, what have you, we need answers, we need them quickly. I cannot close down the city as fast as I need to. Nomad, I'm gonna need you to stick with Tyrrell on this one, or perhaps go with your separate ways to cover more ground. If there's any way you guys have to find out if anyone's trying to leave, any way to sense somebody or see them, now's the time. I need you both to head to the gates and inform them to lock the city down under order of the king.
Nomad would nod and say, immediately, and turn and begin moving as quickly as he can off towards the entrance of the city.
Ting, 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 ting.
Oh, yeah. The sound of metal feet stomping very loudly and quickly echoes throughout the streets.
The grinding of metal ass cheeks.
Colonel,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. And Tyrrell?
Uh, Zero would agree to, what she says, and if he sees Nomad going off one way, uh, assuming that it's not exactly imperative to, like, we're in immediate danger, it just seems like he was. He'd go to the other gate, trying to get it shut down. Splitting up would be faster.
Okay. And looking back towards Aura's, you see Ember nestle into her hair, hop up, and perch onto her horn, and just kind of fluff and begin looking around. Ember seems to be on lookout.
It's a radar bird.
Doing his best.
Ember's doing their best, okay? But Oris then very quickly turns about and begins heading towards looks to be a house here in residential. And quite quickly, while I might add. But quickly enough, as it were, Nomad and Tyrrell would be making your way to the gates. Is there anything you would like to try to do along the way?
Nomad would probably be keeping an eye out for anything that could be considered suspicious.
All right. And what would that deem? For sake of narrative.
Well, Nomad recalls that there was a great amount of blood at the murder scene, so he'd be looking out for anybody with any blood on them, anybody holding a weapon that isn't, blood onyx, anybody who, based on his limited knowledge, appears suspicious, so people wearing, like, hooded cloaks and skulking around.
All right. And this is specifically what he's looking for, correct?
Yes.
Roll me a perception check with advantage.
Yep, D&D Beyond.
Ah, delicious.
Is a 16.
All right. Let's see what prize you get.
Is it a car?
Well, so before we address that further, Tyrrell, is there anything you would like to do on your way to the gate?
Exactly what gate would I have headed to if I was going to the opposite of his, and what district would it take me through?
Both would take you through all of the rings, so including the merchant's ring. But there's one enormous gate that leads into the city. But the one that Tyrrell would also be aware of is Oreto's gate, the one he took Tyrrell out of. That is on the eastern. I'm sorry. Yes, easternmost side of the wall. It is a smaller gate, which is where Oreto went out to have his smoke.
Yeah.
But that is also through the merchants district, but is all the way towards the other end.
So one gate's at one end, one gate's at the other?
Yes, one gate is much larger, and that is the one that Nomad is heading towards. The other one is much, much smaller, and is very private. Or hidden, not too well known, what have you. But the main
Okay.
gate
So
is to the south of or on the southern end of the wall. The smaller gate is on the eastern end of the wall.
okay, and I'm headed towards the smaller gate.
Yep.
And then I also know of a third gate then.
Hmm.
Which is or is this the one that Areto took me through?
This is the one that Areto took you through.
Okay. Then if I know that Nomad is headed towards the bigger one, I would go to check that one just in case.
All right.
Possibly keeping an eye out for just anyone who seems in a rush or, kind of sketchy, but also, does it take me close to the guild hall?
The guild hall is still in the military ring.
Yeah, I mean, when I would reach there, would I be going close to it or not really?
You would have already bypassed it.
Okay, then
The
that
residential
would be
ring is below the military ring.
okay. So I'm okay. I'm only getting through residential and merchant.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Then yeah, that's pretty much what he would do.
All right. So, anything in particular he is looking for?
Um, anyone who's cloaked and trying to stick through the shadows, maybe. Just kind of seems out of place while he's, going to this gate. And he's in a rush, so I mean, it's.
All right. Straight perception check.
Gotcha. Give me a sec. My thing doesn't want to load. Just give me just a minute.
It's fine.
Okay. 10.
All right. So, Tyrell, you don't really notice anything out of the ordinary, which, again, you're kind of in a hurry. Because
Yeah.
this is one of those gates that if someone was trying to get out of it, knowing that it's there, they'd make a beeline for it. Especially if they had just committed a crime as heinous as this. So you're more focused on getting there, more than
Yeah.
really keeping a lookout. But
Yeah. Okay.
quick enough as you can, you navigate yourself through the crowd in the merchant's ring, which is slowly dying down. Excuse me. And you make your way over to the small nook of this smaller gate. And there's a blood onyx there, and is full view, just watching you approach. Nomad.
Mhm.
As you are approaching the larger gate, you don't see it as much as you feel it. But you get the sensation that there's just something lingering near you. It doesn't seem to be following you, but it's lingering. It seems to be somewhere to your left.
How far away is the gate?
At this point, you are probably about 100 feet away.
Is this entity that I seem to be sensing, does it seem to be moving, or is it just skulking?
A little bit of both. It seems to be moving, almost like it's trying to keep distance from you.
Is Nomad is he able to clearly sense this thing? Is it like a sense that's definitely not going to go away?
It's almost like that creeping sensation you get of someone's watching me, and then you turn, and you're not sure what you're gonna see, but you got that feeling that there's something there.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of feeling it is. So it's nothing like solid, like I am using the force. The force is with
Yes.
me. It's more of those. Someone's staring at my ass right now, and I don't know how to feel about it. That kind of feeling.
Well, it seems that they're still in the city, so Nomad's going to make his first priority to get to the gate and inform the guards to lock down the city.
All right.
No, man, they're already doing that.
What was that?
Not that. That should be quiet.
But easy enough. The pair of you make it to your respective gates, and the guards at each just kind of look at you, and both gates would respond roughly the same way of, "Can I help you?"
Nomad would say, "There has been a murder. By the order of King Aris, the city must be locked down. No one can be allowed to leave."
And the guard at the main gate kind of looks over the other one, and looks at the sash, looks back at the other one, just kind of gives that, "All right," shrug, and they both just instantly turn around and drop levers, and the gate just begins to slowly drop. And as it does, you see two very large metal doors on the outside begin to be pulled inwards. So it is a actual uh like metal square gate, as well as two very heavy metal doors, all just and after about 40 seconds of it going about, the whole thing just shuts. And for Tyrell, same thing of, "Can I help you?"
She would run up to him and explain that, like Nomad did, there is a murder, and King Horus wants the city shut down. No one can leave, and it needs to be done immediately.
And you see him just kind of nod and notices the sash and also notices the patch that you're wearing. And just, "By the way, Guildmaster." And you see him just signal up towards the top of the battlements. And someone just kind of nods and you hear a lever.
Why he's in the middle of doing that, I'd just stop and ask him as well, since this is a less, uh, a smaller gate and all that. I'd ask, has anyone left recently?
And in the process of this turns and left? No. Entered? Yeah.
How long ago did someone enter through here?
And he sits and thinks about it. Probably about eh, probably about an hour ago.
In relative time to Tyrell knowing of this, how long ago did the events of the scream and all that happen?
Probably at this point, it was probably about 45 minutes ago, if that.
Okay. All right. He'll keep in mind that someone came in. There's no way for me to really tell if it's connected. He would ask the Blood Onyx name though.
For the guard's name,
Yeah,
Tylus.
Tylus.
Tylus. Tylus.
Okay, thank you.
And he was, "Why is Orin in any trouble?"
Tyrell just kind of pause and kind of think. Just says, "I'm not It doesn't seem like anyone else is in trouble, but someone was murdered, and we just need to keep an eye out for if someone came in or if someone was leaving. I'm just not quite sure yet.
You hear him just. All right. Well, if Oren's in trouble, he had it coming to him. That's all I'm saying. And he turns around. You see him wave to the guy in the battlement again. And the dude nods. And you see him just drop a heavy ass, what looks to be like a sandbag, over the inside of the wall. And as it does, you hear kink, and the gate that is I actually lost the fucking word for these kinds of the drop gate drops. Thank you. The portcullis drops, and as soon as it does, that sandbag pulls taut on this rope that is attached to it, leading up to the top. And yeah, as it drops down, a set of spikes just launch up from the ground, and it's hit at about 45-degree angle, and just sit there on both sides of the portcullis. Just full on ready. But, yep. The guards have been informed. The gates have been shut. No one is allowed to leave Abkassis. For further notice. So, Nomad, having completed this task, is there anything else you would like to do?
Does it still feel as if that entity is watching me?
You get the feeling that it's still somewhere nearby, but the feeling's kind of diminishing. It's one of those passing sensations. It's like that cold chill up your spine.
Nomad would probably remain by the gate, actually. If it seems as if that feeling is diminishing, then whatever it was is probably returning back into the city for the time being, but Aura specifically asked Nomad and Tyrell to go to the gates and make sure that nobody was leaving. So, for the time being, he thinks it's prudent to stay here and keep an eye out.
Alright. And as you kind of turn and sit there and wait alongside the guards, you almost feel like you've locked eyes with someone. There's a figure amidst the crowd of the merchant's ring in a heavy, thick black robe, draped and hung with a hood over their face. And for just a singular moment, you could have sworn you saw a very familiar, sickening grin. And then they seem to just melt into the crowd.
Nomad's definitely going to keep an eye out for anybody that's similar to that for the time being.
Alright. Tyrell. You do not see such a thing.
Um,
For better or worse, you don't see that.
yeah, like I would say on Tyrell's end because he didn't get anything like that, and he knows the Blood Onyx are pretty well trained and can handle themselves, and this is a lesser known gate. He'd kind of thank them for doing it and just you know tell him if he had tell Tylus if he has any further questions, he'll find them later, and kind of start heading back to see if he can't figure out where Wars went for now, letting her know the task is complete.
Okay. So you're heading back through the merchant's ring?
Yep, keeping an eye out. While I'm headed, I'm not as fast, not running as fast this time as.
All right. Give me a perception check with advantage. If you're just kind of looking around for Oris and just looking around.
Yep.
As you are going at a much easier pace, and now you're just kind of on the lookout. The dice are not your friend today, are they?
No, they're not. I'm not using that function again. I'm just gonna roll it twice separately. I don't like that function.
But you don't going through the merchant's ring, like you bump shoulders with a few people. Like, I'm sorry, and yeah, you just make your way back to residential and look around. And you don't seem to find Oris anywhere. But what you do see is Sinfori and Misted walking away from the gathered crowd that has now been begun to disperse.
Mm.
And it looks like the pair of them are headed back to the Black Keep.
Well, if I see them, I'd run up and try to catch up and ask if Sinfori has seen Oris.
And Sinfori just looks over and shakes her head. No, but I have an idea of where she went. Are you in need of finding her?
Well, she sent me and Nomad off to do a task to make sure the city got shut down, so no one could leave. I would like to one report to her, and two, yeah, it'd be nice to link back up because I was gonna ask her a couple more things yet.
And you see her just kind of stop for a moment, and a very heavy sigh comes out. Well, if anyone has any kind of information, that'd be the person to go to. She would be at. Well, she'd probably be at Oren's house. It'll be rather easy to spot, as there's job boards and posters all over the wall.
All right. If I'm told this, I'd just thank her, tell her that I might actually need to talk to her later on about something, and start heading towards whatever direction she points me in, as I would ask, where the hell is that at anyway?
It'd be a
What?
residential ring, and she would point down the road away from the body.
Yeah. See, my thought process is because they're rings, like maybe she's pointing to a certain direction that would lead to the residential ring.
Yeah, I mean, you guys were already in the residential ring. They were heading on their way back up the steps.
Oh, okay.
The murder took place in the residential ring.
I gotcha. Okay. So she's just pointing me in a general direction now.
Yeah, it's literally
And
just
I
straight down that way.
Okay. Then that is what I'd do.
All right. And when she said it's difficult to miss, she wasn't kidding. You literally just go and see like beautiful houses. There's some apartments, like whatever's, what have yous. The occasional like inn here and there, like the small park, and then you come across this one structure. We'll go with structure. It looks to be not quite to the level of run down, but more or less not too well upkept. It seems like it might have been really nice at one point, but has since fallen into dust and possibly infestation. Can't be sure. But the walls of the outside of the walls there are just plastered with job posters and bounty posters and monster uh, biographies and whatnot. Just wall covered, like wanted posters, the whole 9 yards. And out front, next to the door, you see that there is looks to be a case of some kind, like a suitcase maybe, or a luggage bag, just plopped outside the front door. and the door is wide open.
Walk over just not so much like stick his head through and just pop in, but just kind of look and see if he can see anyone moving around or anything.
Walking over, it's easy enough to see the, well, illumination that is coming off of Oris as she seems to be standing in a room with a probably about 5'10", dark-haired human male with rather suntanned skin and just this air of cockiness to him, and a rather well traveled but still very like almost nobility but still like higher social class type of like outfit, complete with a what looks to be a pressed velvet jacket, and it is a green velvet jacket. And they seem to be in the middle of a conversation, and he just leaves with, "You know, you can ask me that same thing over and over and over again, and I will continue to tell you the same thing. I don't know, I just got here. You can give me a day and I can tell you what I learned, but I don't know anything else, dear." And which was met with Aura's just, "How can you say such polite things and still be so infuriating?" "It's a gift, darling. We'll check back on you later." And she turns around and just kind of sees Tyrell and nods. And I'm going to say we're going to take a quick 5-minute break right there. While we, what's that?
Endlessly, just the best kind of NPC. Endlessly infuriating.
And I will be back in about 5 minutes. And we're back. So, Oris has turned to leave, and as she does, this individual that has been named as Orin looks at her as, by the way, could you be a dear and, send someone by to clean the place? I'll pay them, of course, always, as always. And Oris just looks at him, find them yourself. You're good at that. Before exiting out of the front door and stopping to look at Tyrell. I assume things went off well.
As far as I know, I'm going to assume Nomad has done his part. I went to a lesser gate, made sure it was shut down. Didn't see much on the way, but then again was more in a rush than checking. So, but no one had gone in, and only someone had come in within the last hour. But that could be really anything, so I didn't press much on it. But I did ask the guard's name in case we need to go back on it.
She nods. Did he happen to mention who it was that had arrived?
I didn't ask much on it. He just said someone had come in with the last hour. I figure within the last hour they'd still have to be in the city since no one has left.
Tyrell would know the name, because he gave the name of the
Oh.
person that came in, which was Orin.
Oh, then yeah, I know her. What was it, sorry?
Orin.
Oh, then Tira would tell her it's someone named Orin.
And she just rolls her eyes, turns around, and looks at him. And he goes, I've nothing to do with it, dear. Absolutely nothing.
Tira would just kind of peek around her and be like, I assume that's Orin.
And he gives a very strange gesture as he mimes like taking off a hat and gives a very elegant, flowing bow. Like,
yeah, he's gonna do the one arm out, take
Yep.
off like the twirl and bow.
The tiefling.
yes. And he does this very elaborate bow, and Orin Gaius. Pleasure to, well, I guess not so much a pleasure. Depends on the circumstances. At your service. And he promptly then stands back up, reaches into the folds of his jacket, and pulls out a wrapped tube of some kind, strikes a match, and lights it. And begins to smoke.
Tira just looks at him and, nice to make your acquaintance. Fair enough. Then just looks over to Oris like, you know.
And she just kind of sighs. Centauri will want to speak to you, Orin. I'm sure she has more pertinent questions than I do. Pressing matters and all that, yada yada yada. And he just smiles and, I wouldn't dream of missing an invitation from my sister. It'll be great times. I assure you it's a great time. And takes another long drag before exhaling. And
At the mention of seeing his sister, Tyrell just starts doing a double take between him to Oris, to him to Horace, looking back and forth like, is he really related? Just thinking on, and then he just sits there and does that thing where he like holds his chin and thinks on the names, like, but how is he related to Symphori?
And
then just looks at her.
by the way,
know-
whatever he's smoking smells kind of funky. It's a fun time. It's a great time.
Mm.
Well, you see him dust the coat off and step up. As you were.
Well, I was just gonna say Tyrell just kind of looks at Oris for like, what the fuck is going on?
And she just shakes her head. I've had too much today. I can't deal with you, Orin. I'm gonna go. I don't know. I'm gonna go sleep or something. I'm still kind of drunk. And proceeds to wander off, which looks like she's heading towards the direction of the Black Keep.
Tyrrell would follow her for a bit.
And
Just-
as the two of you go to leave, you hear Orin come out the front door and and proceeds to then lift the bag, which all you hear is the sound of jingling. Like a very distinct sound of a lot of money. Which he then waddle steps into the house, and you hear heave ho, huh! Followed by and then the door shuts, and he starts following after the two of you, smoking the whole way.
Yeah, that's a thing.
Yes, he is.
Tyrrell doesn't know how to feel on him yet, but I'm sure he'll find out soon enough.
Yeah, and Oris the whole way is just looks at Tyrrell. They're siblings. It's weird. Family houses. Strange things. Anyways.
Yeah, Tyrrell just sits there. She says that he just kind of goes, gets ready to say something, then thinks on it a little bit longer and just goes back to not saying anything, just nods his head.
To which then, as the three of you are all walking, you hear the sounds of shifting paper from behind you.
Tyrrell just kind of gives a passing look behind.
Orin seems to be, has produced some folded up parchments and is passing through it, and then stops at something and just, there you are. Takes another quick drag. So you must be Tyrell?
It's just a little bit of a twitch when that happens, and he goes, "It's Tyrrell."
Ah, Tyrell. Wonderful.
Hey,
What?
Ron.
Hey, Ron. You done fucked up now, hey, Ron? But yeah,
Tyrell.
and this procession leads you all back to the Black Keep, and the whole way, he's just muttering to himself, looks like you are from Orbix. Planar Hunter. Interesting. And he's just rattling off information about you. Like,
Tyrrell just looks at him like, "What are you? How do you know this? Why do you know this?"
and he just keeps going, and there's some stuff here that you've never told anyone. Including mentions of your family back in Orbix, your younger brother, how long you've been with the Guild of Planar Hunters. Just all kinds of things. You're just like, you've never told anyone that.
At mention of this, honestly, Tyrrell will keep walking for now, as he's related to these just extravagant people, and assumes there's probably something weird that they can do, and just. But he will kind of consciously just keep a hand resting on his sword now. It's like he's letting, like, how you let your wrist hang on like a something if you're just chilling out. He's essentially doing that, just a little bit more guarded now because it's thoroughly creeping him out.
Yeah.
And if it's stuff that it seems like he shouldn't know, he'd just be like, "How do you know this?"
Yeah. And then he starts mentioning your reports. And is literally just shuffling through papers. All the while just rattling the stuff off as you guys talk and just smoking his joint.
Tara would just turn to Oris and just ask, "Does he have a tendency to rob people?"
And she just shakes her head. No, information is his means of finance. It's I can't explain it. I can't understand how he does it. I don't get it. And Oren then just pipes up. So I'm an information broker. It's what I do. I have sources
Okay.
all over the world, and in places that you'd rather not go, and in places I'd rather not say. Everything's for
Uh,
sale, but nothing's for sale.
Tara just looks at him and goes, "Somehow I trust you and don't trust you at the same exact time."
And he just smiles. Well, it's better than most people. Most people just straight up just don't trust me until I work for them, and then they trust me wholeheartedly.
"I just understand you can be useful. It's just very odd that you know this much about me." And then the question is, who is the one who gave you this information, and why do they know so much about
And he just, I never reveal my sources. It's part of
it?
my
I'm not
code.
asking to. I have a sneaking suspicion on some of it.
And as you all continue to walk, you eventually make your way to the Black Keep, and he starts naming every one of the guards, each one of the Blood Onyx, each one of the Night Fang, and addresses them by name. Hey, how you doing today? How's the family? Oh, his little one's still sick? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And just the whole way. And Oris is just done with his shit already.
At some point, Tyrrell would just, on his way there, it'd just be driving at. And I'd say Tyrrell would honestly ask, um, you know, what all information did you have on my family?
So, saying this, you hear Oris give an audible sigh and slightly quicken her pace and just kind of gains a distance from you, and he just, I'm so glad you asked. Well, as I said, I'm Oris. I'm Orin Gaius, of course, naturally, information broker. My ear to the ground and the pulse of the entire world. That's my entire shtick. Now, if you would like information of things that you don't know but wish to, I'm sure we can make a deal. A single gold piece for everything I know on the subject.
Doesn't seem shady at all.
Tyrrell would just kind of look at Oris and just be like, is it credible?
And she just nods, and he continues his he's used to this kind of interaction. He just again looks at Tyrrell and every single job posting, every single request, hunt, monster needing slain, or princess needing rescued, or what have you, I know every bit of it because I'm the one that said it all. Every job posting you'll find here in Venaru, well, it was my handiwork. Any request for aid doesn't come straight from the lawkeepers themselves. I probably had a hand in it. It's a pretty good bet. And even over in Zerdo and the Sprawl, even the Shattered Peaks, though I don't like going there too often, they're not very amenable to paying for information.
As he's rumbling on, Tyrrell just kind of fishes out a gold piece from his pocket and isn't going to ask any specific questions, but simply going to test him and give it to him and just ask for information on Orbix.
Information on Orbix. And he takes the gold piece, tucks it into his pocket, pats it real quick. Yeah, that's real. All right. And as you are walking through the Black Keep, Orin begins to rattle off. The original founding of Orbix was to form a peace treaty between Wersine and Nora, where Wersine was the financier of most of Zerdo and their efforts throughout the world at the time. But they had a strong dislike for those of lesser profit, quality, wealth, if you were. While Nora was established as a place that was purely self-reliant upon technology, as they felt magic was an expendable resource and might be exhaustible at some points. Weirder things have happened, and thusly have grown into a culture of hating anything magical, to the point of exile or killing. Orbix was first established to put an end to their squabbling, as Wersine was known for its magical advancement and Nora for its technological. Neither two could get along, and they were constantly fighting over the space between their two territories. So, Orbix was established, built, and constructed as the midway point. It was the truce between the two. Basically, as long as Orbix stood, the other two had to mind their own fucking business. And that's the way they liked it. Eventually, Orbix came about as being a safe haven from those fleeing from Wersine or from Nora, or both. That while in Orbix, they were free of anything to do with either. And while they were technically located near the sea, they were not allowed to establish any kind of dock or port for fear of criminal issues of fleeing the countries. So instead, they just became a safe haven for those outcast, rejected, or hunted. And throughout the many centuries of Orbix existing, it has seen several different wars, been destroyed and rebuilt quite a few times, but nothing to the degree of what has happened most recently. And from what I've heard, my sources tell me that it has basically been wiped off the map completely. There's nothing left there. Only ash, smoke, and fire. Not even rubble. There's not a soul that is left there, and those that got out were the lucky ones. Though where they go to from there, who can say? And as for the Orbix Guild, which I'm sure you're fully well aware of, it was rather unfunded for a while, and even up to this point was lackluster in its funding, as they had no real patronage from either of the sides. But they made do with what they had. They didn't have a citadel, they didn't even have so much as a real temple of Ezia, but they made do. It was a cultural melting pot of everything and everyone. Every culture has ended up there and turned into what we knew Orbix was. Anything more specific you'd like to know?
Uh, Tyrell would just honestly kind of go silent for now and just continue walking.
Okay. And passing off on that, Elbrig. It's been a little while. I apologize.
Run away.
Elbrig's in a whole new world right now. So, is there anything in the annex particularly you would like to take a look at or look for?
And the annex is once again another depository of knowledge, right?
Yes, the annex itself is the basically the archive of every secret and historical incident and powerful artifacts that has ever gone through Vanaru, or possibly even the world. No one really knows. It is very, very limited access. to the point where, unless you are otherwise deemed by the king, queen, keeper, etc., no one else sets foot in there.
Right. As always, we continue with the main quest since we have access to the place that keeps secrets. Where or how do I get to the afterlife without actually dying?
All right. In that particular sense, uh, roll a perception check with advantage because you kind of know what you're looking for, and an investigation check straight up.
17
Okay.
for perception, and then you said investigation straight up, right?
Yep.
It was a 16.
All right. Outbreak's on a fucking roll. He's on a mission. He knows what exactly he's looking for.
Apparently, I have no modifiers to either of those checks.
But yeah, pretty easily. You kind of just pan your eyes around and look around and start looking, and then you see an entire section that looks to be old notations, artifacts, just a massive collection of things a little bit further down, and it seems to completely revolve around the dream, uh, including things like artifacts of a more terrifying nature, including one thing in a case that legitimately just says soul dust, and it is this glowing, almost ethereal looking sand, or like very fine dust. And it just continuously emanates like this strange, almost like smoke from it. There's another one that is in a case that looks to be a locked pair of gauntlets that, according to the placard, at one point were rumored to be able to actually grip someone's soul and return it to their body forcefully without the need for magic or without the need to cast a spell of that kind. But that probably hasn't been worn in several hundreds, if not possibly thousands of years, and has simply remained here locked behind the display.
Wait, what is it that's behind this? What?
Looks to be a pair of gauntlets, and the actual placard, like the descriptive placard on it, you can't really make out the name. It's really been worn down, but that it seems that these gauntlets were apparently able to grab somebody's soul and put it back into their body, forcefully putting the soul back into their physical body.
That doesn't scream like necromancy going wrong at all.
Mm. But you find many books and scrolls and whatnot referring to the dream, as this section here refers or seems to completely encompass death and the journey thereafter. And with that investigation check, you come across a particularly old looking tome that's, upon kind of going to reach for it, you get the sense of someone standing next to you. And as you look over, you see a projection. And this looks like almost like an astral projection type view. It's kind of ethereal and a bit floating, but clearly does not seem alive. Doesn't seem like it has a soul, which is oddly reminiscent of what you experienced while at the Archive of Aster with the three individuals at the desk. It seems pre-programmed. And all it does is it motions towards a container, like a wooden box that's at the end of the corridor, and just motions to it, and then motions to the items on the bookshelves and on the cases and whatnot. And it seems to be like pointing towards it.
carefully investigate.
Okay. You're gonna investigate the box.
Yep, it's not for touching anything. Or touching anything. Is it locked?
All right.
Does it have any writing on it?
It is legitimately just a wooden lid chest box, and it is one of many that seems to stretch down each one of these corridors. And it's probably about, yeah, it's probably about 7 inches long and about 5 inches 5 inches wide and about another 6 inches deep.
This should hold like a wand or a rod.
Mm, it might hold something, but it's closed currently. But yeah, there's no lock. It's just a latch. Like you can just open it.
We're taking no chances. We go ahead and tap Samson's collar, which is of course hooked to our spellcasting focus of the lantern,
Mm-hmm.
and flip our hand through motion real quick and summon the ethereal version of our hand, nice and purple and semi see through.
Okay.
And we'll have the mage hand flip open the latch and slowly open the top of this box.
Okay. Inside is a pristine pair of gloves. And again, this box seems to have many duplicates that run down towards the end of each of these corridors. And it is safe to
Just to see if they
assume
actually are duplicates. Just to see if they actually are duplicates. You only go to a second box, open up, and see what's glove.
another set of pristine gloves.
Okay, close the second one. Look at the first. Is there a placard or a card or anything?
Just these pair of rather long, uh, very stretchy gloves. You can't really tell what they're made of, but they're very soft to the touch, but don't seem to have like any like fibrous materials.
Pick up the box. Is there a card underneath the box, maybe?
It's
I'm
just a
not one to
table.
just try shit on, okay?
It's just a table. Underneath the box is just a table. And each one of these boxes has a set of gloves in them.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to searching for actual knowledge. Like we're gonna go treat some of the older stuff very carefully as we look for actual knowledge. We're gonna leave the gloves alone, even though we're curious.
Okay. And as you would go to reach for the book again, that projection appears again and points to the box, and then points to the shelf.
They might be safety gloves. Okay, that's what they're probably. Okay, okay. Now we're gonna put one glove on, just to see if anything bad happens, while we hope our fingers don't like rot away or something like that.
No, as you slide the glove on, it seems to fit to your hand.
Wait, give it like a good minute just to see if anything happens.
It's a glove,
Okay,
slightly
we'll put on the
magical.
other glove. We'll put on the other glove. So actually, just to make sure to remember right, because I've said this before, because I don't like touching things bare skinned. I take off the gloves I normally wear, the
Hmm.
nice leather work gloves I got from my tailor friend. Stick them into my belt, in between my belt and myself, and then I put on the new gloves. Then I reach for the book.
Okay. And as you have these gloves on and you reach for the book, it gently just lifts from the shelf and slowly descends into your hand.
I just like in my mind give them props for the little image saying "use safety gloves." That's pretty cool. And then I'm gonna go over to a table, set the book down gently, and begin to peruse.
All right.
Uh, although I'll put it down, and then I will go ahead and, since it's nighttime, I will undo Samson's armor. we got armored up for that murder thing, but there's nothing for us to really do right now.
Yeah,
I'll
and
just go ahead and take off his armor.
yeah, he gives a pretty rigorous shake, and then just follows behind and plops next to you.
We can take a bit of a treat from one of our pouches. Have a treat ourselves from said pouch. It's just jerky, real quick. Put the glove back on after we eat our jerky, and then lean over the book and get to reading.
All right, and as you pass your hand towards the book, the cover slowly lifts, and without even having to actually touch the book, you can pass the pages over.
That is definitely one way to do it.
Mm?
As I'm talking to myself in this empty ass room.
Oh no, there's Paravis is in the room with you.
Oh, Paravis.
Yeah,
Is Paravis is the guy who didn't want us to have access to the annex, right?
yeah, that was the old guy. This is a young guy.
This Do they look the same?
Not terribly. Both are named
Like,
Paravis.
hmm. Well, that's an inquiry for another day. We have a book through.
Yep.
So, eh.
And reading through this book, you're pretty knowledgeable of what you're looking for. And the book depicts the idea of the dream, which is the origin of every living soul, which was the original souls were formed into these cases that were dispersed among the Einkorps. And the Einkorps took these, filled them with their powers, and gave birth to new life. With Nemunia's help and Nemunia's song, each one was taken onto its own form, scattered throughout the world, and given life. Through Arknaus's final gift, which was his only ability, the dream came to a full cycle, whereas prior, no one died. That was an issue. Arknaus's one power is he had no ability to create anything like the other Einkorps could. He could change everything else they made, however. So his gift was he was weaker than them by technicality, that he could not create as they could. But he could change, manipulate, and alter their creations as long as they'd already created them. So he could change the end result however he wished. And with this knowledge, understanding that this is his one and only power, he introduced the idea and the change that they would meet their end. Therefore, the cycle of the soul was from birth, creation, to being scattered about. He introduced an end to the cycle, death. That all must die. All things must end so new things can begin. And thus created the channel, with Nemunia's help, that led from the source, which is what they call or refer to the entity that put this power out there and created the Einkorps, and what causes and is the dream. From the source, the soul is born, put into a body, the body lives its life, the body eventually, or the soul will eventually, in this body die. The soul is given its time frame of making peace with its existence and now lack thereof. And after 14 days, they follow the song that Nemunia wrote for Arknaus and for Death, and they follow that song into the dream, back into the source, where then they live out their dream. They live out their memories. That is the perpetual cycle. And that eventually, at one point, it can get to the point where the soul that has lived its dream can choose to be brought back and take on a new form, take on a new life, and have a new dream. And thus the cycle continues. That all things go through this cycle, not just living souls and mortal beings, but things such as trees with their seeds. One tree dies, a new seed is born, and it goes into the elaborate details of the cycle of life and death. Panning further on, these are things that you've never even heard of in current common day, like books and informatives and whatnot. Like this seems like ancient knowledge, like ancient lore, as it does in fact mention that the devout of Arknaus can have the choice, upon passing away, to give up their cycle, that they give up their dream, and instead remain behind as guides and guardians of the souls. As one being Arknaus and Pneumonia's song was not enough to constantly just keep the flow of souls living and dying in and out. It was too much to handle for just one individual and a song. Souls would get lost, they'd go missing, they'd get confused, they'd have regrets, things like that. And that led to a large outbreak of instances of things such as wraiths and banshees and ghouls and ghosts. Just all manner of things that should have died, but for one reason or another, didn't. They did not go back. And so these guides act as basically Arknaus's right hand. In the world of the afterlife, they are there to guide and comfort the souls that have begun to pass on, and lead them to the dream, lead them to the source, therefore allowing them to avoid as many of these stray souls, as they call them, as possible, thus continuing the cycle of life and death. And that it is truly Arknaus's devout that will allow themselves to make this choice, that they have within those 14 days to make this choice. But again, if they make this choice, they will never be born again, they will never live their dream, and their cycle ends with them. But in return, they will exist permanently more as guides and guardians. It then states that there was a disruption at one point with this particular cycle of life and death that originated from nearby the source itself, where some of the dreams would spill out. And this also merged into the living world, the material world, where dreams and sleep also bound together. And in this coagulation, this mass, this complete just swirling vortex of nothingness, everything, and confusion, the dream wilds were born. Where fantastical things that could only exist in your wildest dreams and most terrifying nightmares could live and exist and just be. And then eventually it grew to such an extent it had to be governed. So Arknaus changed some of his most devout, his most promising individuals into a Reinkur, his Reinkur, the lords and ladies. And some of them were sent to the Dreamwilds to govern it. That these were the princes and princesses, the lords and ladies of the Dreamwilds, where they established a system of government and order within the Dreamwilds. That while many of them chose to venture back and forth between the Dreamwilds and the material world, some remained behind. One such entity was referred to as the Sleeping Prince, who it is his ability as an Arainkor to maintain the boundaries between the Dreamwilds and the material world, and that there's just some times where his boundary falters. His dream kind of fades a little bit, and he wakes up a little bit. And that is when the Dreamwild overlaps with the material plane. And when he falls back asleep, it pulls itself back and sometimes leaves things behind and takes things with it. But that there is another Arainkor there, who is the Lady of the Trees. And there's another lord there, who is the Lord of the Waters. And just here and there's of all these strange creatures that, or strange entities that now exist in the Dreamwilds and govern it. And that while there is no direct way, aside from death, to peer into the source, that there's a small section of this script here that mentions that the Dream Wilds is the closest location to the source itself in its truest form, and thus is the closest thing to the dream itself. And then it continues on with more things about further investigations into the dream, into the source, and understanding that the source is a living entity. That it is, in fact, a being beyond gods, beyond the crowns, and beyond reality. That it is something unfathomable and incomprehensible. You, if you were able to understand it, that would truly be something that sets you apart from the rest of the entirety of the reality.
Unless I became the Sorcerer Supreme.
You have wrought the multiverse of madness. But,
No one expected that.
but yeah, and while you're reading through this, and going to assume Albrig is quite tuned into this.
Yeah, this is one of those moments where the world has fallen away and I'm just absorbed in the knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Albrig would probably at some point just kind of take a break and look up, and there's the individual referred to as Proavis, reading the book alongside you. Well, across from you. You never even heard him come up.
Kind of just go, oh, hey, whoa, where the when did you get here?
And he just looks up and, I've been here the entire time. That's some rather particular information that you are privy to. What drives this curiosity of yours?
None of your goddamn no. um, I'm one of those people who likes to trust but verify.
Mm. And you see him just kind of look at the book and, well, you're not going to find all the answers there. That book is incomplete.
Even if I want real answers, I need to go to need to have certain dreams.
And he just nods and, yes, but do remember, whether spoken or not, an understanding that there are rules in place, laws that must be obeyed, whether they are mundane or divine. They're there for a reason. Best not to tempt it.
You go around telling me to not make reality. I'll do it if I want to. I appreciate the warning and trying to do this, breaking those laws.
And he
Faith
just,
is all well and good. Sometimes
yeah, he
you need
just
just a little bit more.
nods. Hmm. Tell me, before you gather any more information, are you aware of the law of planar boundary and why it exists?
He said planar what?
The law of planar boundary.
No.
Hmm.
What's that?
Well, it's a divine law that was put in place by the great Lok, Crown of Law. And in it states that the mortals of this plane are not to venture beyond, well, this plane. That every time someone would travel to another plane, open a new gate, or tear a rift or something, that hole would remain. And if you punch enough holes, eventually the entire thing collapses. Thus, the planar boundary law was put into place, also preventing the Einkur from traveling to other planes. Therefore, their entire focus was solely on this world, and maintaining it, keeping it safe, and tending to its needs, and ensuring that the laws were being followed.
So there are ways already there.
He just looks at you, and you've gotten this sensation before. It is a very not really like angry look, but it's irritated.
Small, tiny smirk. It's the tiniest of upturns of my lips. I get this irritated look.
Yeah,
It's
he's
because,
very
he's telling me
irritated.
no, and I'm like, I don't care. No.
Oh, he's
He's
rather
basically
irritated.
denying my entire life's journey here, so I'm gonna piss him off just a little bit.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, and as he looks, and everything exists because of the laws. Everything is maintained due to the laws. If you try to break those laws, others may do the same. And if others do the same, eventually those laws just become suggestions. I don't appreciate suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
And then he huffs a sigh. Your kind will never listen, will they? The adventurous, curious,
I laugh at the adventurous comment.
naive, foolish. But,
Good
well,
person.
consequences will come regardless of their origin.
So, what exactly is your kind? Since I'm apparently part of the adventurous, stupid, naive, and curious kind.
Rebellion. The kind of rebellion.
Your kind is the kind of rebellion.
Yes, those that are not satisfied with the current state of the world, the rules and laws in place, and wish to change them for whatever mundane, petty, or personal reasons there may be. That you
Just to be
cannot believe
clear,
it.
you belong to that kind.
And he just motions to his forehead.
Right?
There's the mark of Lok on his forehead, which is the
Very
crown
good.
of law.
I get that, but I'm very confused if he's saying all this stuff and he's spouting laws at me if he's part of the ones who want to change shit. There's a large look of confusion on my faces. again,
He
he's been
doesn't want to change
spouting.
anything.
Well, that's what it sounds like he's saying. I asked what type of kind he is part of, and he's talking about rebellion. I'm
Oh,
very
I'm
confused.
sorry. I thought you were asking like what he meant by your kind, referring to you.
No, no, no. I said because apparently I am part of the naive, the curious, the rebellious. What kind is he part of?
That is my
What are
apology.
his kind?
That is
I
my
was about to
apology.
say that is very confusing.
That is my fault. I am so sorry. I misheard you. All right, just reset all that.
All right. So the last thing was said was that you're kind and naive, and I go, so what kind do you belong to? Since I'm the naive, the curious, the adventurous, as I use their quote.
He reiterates by this time now pointing to his forehead and mentioning that he belongs to law and the current state of affairs, learning from history and why things should stay as they fucking are. In those words, by the way.
As he says that, I'm all for following the laws and learning from history. I very rarely like to do things that will go against common sense, like many adventurers do. So, since you are part of the law, you belong to the law, and we want to learn from history and everything, is there a way for me to confirm the afterlife without actually dying, or without breaking the don't travel to a different plane law of mortal?
And he just looks at you and, well, most cases that would be considered faith.
Faith is not confirmation.
Do
I
you
have
doubt the
faith.
crowns then?
I've met some of the crowns. I don't doubt their existence. I just want confirmation. It is great to hear faith. It is wonderful those who can just believe on the word of others. Again, I'm one of those people who just can't go on faith alone.
And he just sits there and thinks on it for a bit.
How hard that is to be a priest that can't go out faith alone.
A bit of a contradiction, aren't you? But yeah.
I think it's one of the main reasons I'm not so happy-go-lucky as some other kin.
And he really thinks on this for a little while. And Pravis stops. And you notice something very familiar, very off putting, but you've seen it quite enough times. This one's different. Behind his eyes, almost like past his gaze, you see a glowing halo of golden light, seemingly hidden. And he thinks on it, and thinks on it. I don't think of any other way. To confirm that the dream is real, you'd have to visit it. To visit the dream, you'd have to die. And to do so without dying, well, that just breaks the rules.
My head kind of bows. And there have the entirety of my problem. I don't want to break the rules, but I have a driving need to verify.
He just looks around, gazing at all the books and the artifacts and whatnot kept in the annex. And again, he's seems to be thinking rather hard. And then in a moment, you see this golden glow come over him, and then he's just gone.
You okay there?
He's just gone.
Oh, he's gone?
He's gone.
You made the stick in the mud disappear, Elbrig. What the heck?
There's a flashlight and he's gone. There's the look left, look right, fucking look underneath the table, and just pound the desk in frustration.
And then from behind you here, please don't do that.
Oh, son of a bitch!
As he is now standing, holding a book, and is just passing his hands over, turning the pages. Unless you intend to replace those, please do not pound on the desks. It is rather difficult to have permission to bring new ones in, and I do not feel like carrying down all those steps. It is a pain right in the ass just to walk down them.
This is the guy who disappeared on me, right?
Yes.
There's like you can hear the click as my tongue like inside my mouth goes over my teeth, and then there's like the sucking of teeth, and there's a little bit of grinding. It's like you disappeared on me and then reappeared with no.
And then, in a moment, he's now right next to you with that book. And gently lays it open on the table next to you. He probably just moved about 45 feet.
Small part of me that wants to strangle him for doing this.
A large part of you. Do not lie to me.
And the book that he currently has open, it is open to a series of pages, or a set of pages, which seems to depict, in just the most simplistic way that you could possibly depict this, the material verse. In other words, the world itself that you are in, with the dream wilds, the source, and the varying other planes nearby, as well as depicting the actual flow of the dream and the cycle.
That's kind of leaning over.
And he just points to it. So you are here, and points to the actual material plane. You want to perceive something that is inside here, and drags the finger across the page all the way over to what looks to be just a very large orb that's just sitting in what looks to be nothingness in space. This is the source. This is the dream. And then points back to the material plane. You are trying to look at something, into something, and confirm something within, something that is beyond the plane you are currently in. And then points to the dream wilds. This is the buffer between the two. It was made accidentally. However, it was still made. And you can see that the dream wilds basically is like, so you know how you have silly putty? And you just kind of squish it between two objects? And then just gently let it just stretch back out again? That's what the dream wilds looks like. It is squished between these two planes, the source itself and the material plane. And it looks like it was just gently eased apart. So the dream wilds actually somewhat overlap with both. Very tiny amount of overlap on the source, but a more substantial coverage of area for the actual material plane. And he just motions to it, and so you see the issues. There's only one way to get there. And he motions to the cycle that is actually depicted, and it looks sort of like a river, like a flowing river that goes from one end back around to the other. You're trying to perceive inside creation and destruction, the beginning and the end, at the same time. Am I getting this correct?
If that is the source in the dream, yes. That is the afterlife that we all get to experience unless people deviate and become guardians or wretched undead creatures. Yes, I want to verify that the afterlife is a real and true thing.
He sits there and he thinks on it for a moment. I am not the one to ask how to bend. And he just seems to be like having a really hard time actually even putting the words out there. I do not condone, support, nor offer advice on how to perform a bending of the rules. That would be Imtrix's domain. If you can calm the chaotic monstrosity that she is.
It much. You two scares the shit out of me, but that's a bit much.
And then he leaves the book there for you to read at your discretion. And walks back down all the way to where he was and begins placing artifacts and books and scrolls and records back to where they go and reading them along the way.
In the book he's left me, are there actually, I know it showed the depiction, but are there actually any notations of areas of overlap
Yes.
between the dream wilds and the mortal plane?
From your point of view, they don't actually have names or actual like notations, but it doesn't look like it was depicted this way on accident. Excuse me. As everything else, including depictions of the material plane, seems spot on. Like very accurate. You see other planes, elemental planes itself, the dream wilds, the source, the cycle, the flow, as they refer to it in this book, and just everything seemed to be detailed immaculately.
Mm.
So these overlaps do not look like they were accidental. At least as far as the depiction goes, which it is a
Yeah.
legitimate like centerfold image
Mm-hmm.
with like the small like notations of material plane, etc., etc., etc. But yeah, it looks like there are spots where the dream wilds would overlap with the source itself.
So I'm going to read the book and crack. I left that in the room.
So you're gonna curl up and cry.
No, no. I was gonna fucking copy something down, but I left my stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, that matters. as this one.
Sorry.
So sitting there looking at this depiction,
Hmm.
and I try to recreate that image with minor illusion.
Hmm. With minor illusion.
Yeah. You can create a sound or image of an object within range that lasts for the duration. Create sound. Uh, Create an image of an object such as a chair, a muddy footprint, or a small chest. No larger than 5 foot cube. The image can create sound, light, smell. Effects. Alright, so yeah. I just want the image of what I'm looking at.
You know what? Yeah. For the sake of this, as this is an attempt, you can, uh, for the amount of time and practice it'll take to actually like repeatedly try and do this and pull it off. Uh, I'll give you a choice. Uh, you can either use an Arcana check or a performance check.
Well, it is then.
Sorry.
The performance it is.
All right.
It's a question to see if this helps me at all. I am trained in both calligrapher's supplies, so basically fancy writing, and cartographer's tools, so like map making. Does that help me at all when it comes to recreating this image?
With proficiency.
I can do it with proficiency?
Yep. With cartography,
Sweet. Okay, so,
because it is technically a map.
proficiency, this gets another 3 on top of it, so son of a bitch, the 13.
Okay. Uh, it takes you a good few tries, but eventually, probably about 30 minutes to an hour of studying and recreating. No, that's a little bit off. Study it. Try again. No, that one's square now. It's supposed to be circular. Try again. About a 30 minutes to an hour of that. Eventually, you are able to reproduce it over and over and over again, and you're able to match it up.
Yeah, we're gonna close it. With it fresh in our mind, we're gonna close the book. That he gave us the book, right?
Hmm.
But I don't actually know where to put that back. Close the book, put back the book that we had nice and quickly, put the gloves back, and then we're going to scoop up the armor, hop onto Samson, and immediately rush back to our room. All speed. We're trying to get there before any of this fades so that we can get to the room, get to my uh, paper and quill, and make a rendition of this map by via casting the minor illusion to reference. I don't think he'd be too happy with me sitting in there with that book recreating it.
All right. Easy enough as you speed through the Black Keep. Uh, Tyrrell and Misted, on two different occasions, both just see a blur of Samson, Elbrig, and Elbrig holding armor running through the Black Keep up to the room. And it is basically enough time of, hi, bye. But as you would be not really sketching it, but you would be tracing over it, I would say it probably takes you about 30 minutes. But yeah, you are able to successfully copy down by tracing and using minor illusion over and over and over again to make sure you got the details right, you are able to trace this map onto your paper. So you now have a map of the quote-unquote minor multiverse. And I'm going to take another short 5-minute break real quick, and then we can do some closing stuff. So I will be back in about 5 minutes.
Meanwhile, Nomad is still waiting by the gate.
All right.
There's a leak at the boat.
There's a leak in the boat! So, Nomad, it's been a little while. No one seems to really be trying to like force the way through the gates or questioning anything once they're told that city's locked down, there was a murder, the gates will open once the culprit is caught. And most people are just like, oh, okay, well, guess we're staying here for a while. Yeah, nothing really out of the ordinary pops up. You don't see that figure again. And it's probably been about 20, 30 minutes at this point.
Well, if nothing else has happened, I suppose Nomad will nod to the guards and head back towards the keep.
All right. Is there any particular destination aside from just the Black Keep?
No.
Hey guys, the DM betrayed us.
How so?
I can hear him in there rolling dice.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. Don't panic.
Anakin, Anakin.
Anakin, stop panicking. Nomad has a planikin.
No, he does not. Never follow Nomad. I've learned my lesson.
Nomad's a great guy.
Terrible leader.
Nomad, I need you to roll a perception check for me.
Okay. 10.
Alright, what's your AC?
20.
Good to know. Okay. Yeah, you make it to the Black Keep. No real problem. The body seems to have been removed. And the crowd has since dispersed. There is still a few people in the residential ring that are unfortunately tasked with cleaning up the bloody mess. Literally. And it is not a pleasant sight, as there seems to be not just blood remaining, but some pieces. But the body has since been
Gross.
removed. To where? Couldn't really tell you. But you make it to the Black Keep, and in time, as you are walking in, you happen to hear something behind you, which sounds like someone just rambling on, practically non-stop.
Nomad would turn to look at who's rambling randomly.
You see Oris, quickly hastening her pace. Tyrrell, who is just looking completely shocked and just kind of... just a little bit awestruck, a little bit, maybe. Annoyed, possibly. And a dark-haired human man, probably mid-30s, early 40s, in very nice but kind of dusty, like, not quite nobility type of tire, but almost there. So, a little bit higher social class, and this pressed velvet green jacket. And he is just rambling on and on about Orbix. All the while smoking what looks to be some kind of strange cylinder of some kind. And in a few moments after is when you hear the padding of, well, pause, as Samson, with Elbrig astride, goes roaring past you up the stairs and presumably off to your guys' room without even a moment's hesitation. And a little ways ahead of you, you see Misted and Sinfori continuing to walk, which you can assume would be towards. Doesn't seem to be the throne room, but looks to possibly be private quarters or a conversational area. Can't really tell. But yeah. So, Tyrell, Nomad, Misted, what would you like to do?
Nomad would approach Boris and say, I told the guards at the front gate to lock down the city and prevent anyone from leaving. I didn't see anybody trying to leave, and it seemed like everything was in order, so I left.
She nods and she looks rather tired. And
Or,
nods and thank you, Nomad. I need to lay down. And proceeds to continue walking past.
well, Nomad would watch her walk forwards a little while, a bit, and then turn to Tyrell, and as he approaches, say, Tyrell, hello. Were you successful?
You are gargling and far away. A little bit.
How about now?
Yes.
Okay. Tyrell would just look at him and tell him that it went well.
Nomad would nod, say, and who's this?
And you see. You see this individual kind of gives a big grin on his face, looks at Tyrell, and. Well, yes! Who am I?
Tyrell just suddenly adopts the look of Oris that just needs sleep and says he is Orine. I'm not exactly sure which one he's related to, but he's a relative of the king and queen to some capacity.
And he just. Well, that didn't have any pep or spiff to it at all. What kind of an introduction is that? You really should work on that.
I figured you were gonna do the bow and stuff. Not put it on me.
And then he just reaches into a pocket, pulls out some shredded up paper, throws it in the air, like
What?
confetti. Just looks at Tyrell and looks at Nomad. Pleasure to make your acquaintance. I am Orin Gaius. And might I know the pleasure of your name?
I
He
am
seems
Nomad.
confused.
Wow, something you don't know.
I am Nomad.
And you see him just kind of stop and think for a moment. Are you the creature that they were talking about walking through Sinur a couple months back?
Nomad would kind of sheepishly turn turn his gaze a little bit downward and say, "It is likely."
Well, I must say you have had quite an upgrade since the last times I've heard of you. New armor. Very shiny.
Nomad would just say, "I hope I didn't inconvenience anyone there."
And he just cracks like a half smile. Inconvenience is a strong word for it. Scared, possibly concerned, worried, alerted. These are all fair descriptors. It seemed you were just merely passing through. So, now then, onward! I have a conversation with my sister to be had. And he just proceeds to trot forward. Doesn't even bother with the papered confetti he just threw all over into the air and all over the ground.
Carol just follows with him.
Nomad.
Nomad would follow Terrell.
Misted,
Misted's not about it.
you have heard this entire display. So has Sinfori. And she gets this look on her face of, oh no.
Is it this time that Misted has decided she's uncomfortable with the energy this man has brought to the sitting room?
And hearing Oren speaking, Sinfori then kind of stops and then turns down a corridor that she did not seem to initially be going down and passes into what looks to be a lounge room and opens the door, just waits.
Um, Misted's gonna scuttle after her,
Okay,
keeping eyeballs on man that I don't understand.
okay. And he, just as quickly, just without even missing a beat, turns on the heels and goes down the corridor, gives her a great big smile, and walks into the room.
Still uncomfortable with the energy that's been brought to the office.
He is the cringe. Yeah, so, Misted, Tyrell, Nomad, what would you like to do?
Carol goes into the room, on the wall,
Don't sound so happy about it.
sits down against said wall, and just questions things for now.
I mean, there's plenty of couches and whatnot in this room. It seems to be a lounge and conversational room, as it is including a fireplace as well. And Misted, Nomad.
Nomad's just following along and observing what's going on for now.
What an interesting social experiment that is occurring.
Has she taken a seat?
She's waiting for
Or-
everybody to get in.
He's gonna trot right after her. I am the big furry shadow.
Okay, are you going into the room?
Yep.
Alright, as you go in, she reaches over and closes the door behind everyone and proceeds to walk over to a couch and sits down. And Oren is on one of the other couches, completely laid back, feet kicked up on one of the armrests, arms behind the head, and just kind of looks at her. Huh, you cut your hair. She just. This is the last thing I needed today. Hello, Oren. He's just smiling away. Hey, baby sis. So how's it been going?
Eyeball shift. Look at one, look at the other. Look at one, look at the other.
At the mention of this, Tyrrell just makes a grumble, and it just goes to, "Oh God, he's older. He's older." It's audible, so he hears me grumble. "Oh God, he's older."
He just looks at Tyrell and why is that such a shame? Technically she's older, but I matured faster.
Mother.
Sinfora just kind of shakes her head. Please, no more extravagance.
Do we
This.
want to talk hallway confetti?
And she just kind of like rubs the bridge of her nose and then just smiles at Oren. This is my brother. Well, more like cousin, brother. It's strangeness. And he just pipes up. Well, to be fair, you were born with the light blood, and I was not. So you became a Hymna and I did not. That's the only difference. Same mom, same dad.
No.
What do you mean, no?
I was
That's it.
expecting.
That's a complete sentence.
Okay.
I guess there is kind of a resemblance for the knowledge. I guess.
Sinfora just looks over and. We are both very interested in information, knowledge, and history. And he just kind of looks at her as, except one of us gets paid for it.
Oh my god.
Someone
Eh,
please take this man's.
somehow a history lesson is 1 gold. I'm not sure about if it's good or bad.
He just looks at you and, well, I could also tell you about every single hunt and creature and, well, most everything going on around Orbix at the same time. But each one of those will also cost you a gold apiece.
Oh, don't worry. I'm probably gonna have to pay you quite a bit yet.
Now you see why it's only 1 gold.
That's fair.
He just sits up, finishes up whatever it is he is smoking, and tosses it into the fireplace. So, your lovely wife approached me and asked if I'd killed somebody. To which, not this time, but. So, I heard it's the lawkeeper from Ixtabanis, right? And Sinfori just nods. Do you know anything? And he just looks at her. Well, I'd love to tell you anything I know, but I don't know anything. And also, can the giant 7 foot tall rug please stop staring daggers into me?
Eyeball's gonna shift back. Look at Sinfori.
She just looks at Misted and is just like, he's family.
Mm. Misted's going to plop down on the ground. Just floop. Because not walking away.
Carol just Carol's back there and just mumbles, "Wow, I didn't think of that one. 7 foot tall rug.
I am not a rug.
You let it
My,
slide when
my fur is very much still attached to my body, thank you.
well, you let it slide when he called you it.
And he just looks over at Tyrell. That's because I'm charming.
You know,
Yeah, that's
I need to find what you're smoking."
Mav would lean over to Tyrell and say quietly, I might have to reevaluate what the word charming means. No, man, no.
Tyrell just look at Nomad and pointedly just say, "There's a slight charm to him, but I'm not sure if it's charming me to stab him or if I'm just genuinely entertained by the chaos he can bring.
Well,
Somehow it's sure both.
well, as you're sitting there, Sinfora just looks at him and sorry. Sinfora looks over at him and she just begins to ask him something. All right. Well, if you don't know who killed him, and you don't know anything just yet, which I'm sure you'll keep in touch with me and keep me up to date over the next few days, if you find anything. He just nods, naturally. Have you heard anything in your travels regarding assassination attempts? Anything against the lawkeepers? He just sits there and thinks on it for a moment. Well, I know the Grey Plains have issues with Yarrow. Yarrow's got a lot of problems coming his way. In fact, from the undergrounds, there seem to be a few bounties out for him, but no one's ever actually willing to pay enough to get anything done about it. It's all 15 to 50 gold pieces for the offer. It's not enough to kill a lawkeeper. Though I'm pretty sure after this, a lot of people are going to come forth and claim it was them to try and pay off whatever debts they may owe. Aside from that, just the general sneaky, creepy, whatever those cloaked figures are that's been wandering about and sticking around in Zerdo and now apparently in Venaru. There's those creatures from your Blue Man's here reports that seem to have been popping up here and there, making a bit of noise and causing a bit of fuss. And aside from that, who would want the lawkeeper of Ixtabanis in particular killed? I wouldn't have any real solid word on yes or no, but I do know that the next person in line after him is not someone you'd actually want there just yet. That's why the lawkeeper there was sticking around as long as he did. He wanted to make sure that a new candidate was available to be brought in after him. That's not, well, yeah, terrible. But with him dead, now that leaves the seat open. So that leaves it up to you as to who's going to fill that seat. I know Sothop Cass is locked down and no one is able to leave. It's going to cut down on merchant trade and resources in and out, and any travel and any other issues coming in and out. People are going to need their visas to come in. It's a lot of chaos just from one dude dying. But from what I hear, there might be some political work, possibly from over in Zardo towards towards the Ixtabanis Lookkeeper. That's what I heard was just rumors, nothing truly founded. And she just sits there and she's like, it is baffling to me how you are not imprisoned for half the things you know. And he just smiles. Well, on the other hand, might not have anything to do with political at all. As your tiefling friend here has recently learned, shit's going to hell all across the world. This might just be one more step in that direction. But you have my word, sis. I'll call up my sources, tap what I can, and I've always got my ear to the ground for you. She nods. I appreciate it, Oren. He just looks to the rest of you. So, aside from what I already know, and he specifically looks at Misted. So, how long are you planning to play bodyguard?
As long as I'm allowed to sit here. And she crosses her arms all grumpy.
Hmm.
You're welcome, buddy.
He sits there and thinks about it for a moment. Digs into his jacket, pulls out another piece of paper. And there's supposed to be 5 of you, if not 4.
Instant misted facepalm.
He's just looking around, like, now, I've never been really terrible at math, but I'm pretty sure that makes 3 of you.
Nomad
One
kind
of us
of
running around somewhere.
Nomad just kind of says, "We don't stay together at all times."
Contrary to popular belief, I am not attached to Elbrick at the hip. That'd be awfully awkward. He wouldn't be able to walk.
With this, he kind of shoots you a glance. Well, I don't think you're the right size to be my sister's Kane.
Groan. Just groan. Ugh. I'm not a cape. We've been over this. My fur is very much attached to my body.
Kane.
Oh, I thought you said cape.
Kane.
No.
Misted thinks on it for a moment. By the way, that interaction happened in character. I don't give a fuck.
And I thought you had really good ears.
It's questionable at times.
Is it?
Oh, them ears. Oh, them ears. Pull back. Offended.
It's not
Now
so
you
much
have-
she doesn't hear, it's more that she's too busy thinking on other things.
Misted's going to nod for a moment and then realize that you basically just implied that she cannot pay attention.
She just was not paying attention.
Correct. She's going to nod for a moment, realize what you said, and then be like, but not comment because that's admitting that she cannot pay the fuck attention.
Jiro just gives an eyebrow to you when he sees his recollection.
A look of recognition crosses her eyes, and now she's truly offended. Tyrell is a mean, mean blue man.
Dabba-dee-dabba-die.
Comes with the territory.
And he just leans back a little bit. All right, well, your friend Tyrell here has gotten the gist of how I work. So I'd like to explain it to the rest of you, since Sinfori, my dear, darling, beloved sister, doesn't seem to have ever mentioned me based on your reactions. So, my name
Can
is
you make
Oren
me-
Gaius. I'm an
Does that-
information broker. And Tyrell over there has already acquired my services once.
So you guys ever seen a cat that smelled something really bad? And then they do the "Ugh." As Misted right now. This man's very existence. She's over it.
And he smiles and looks at Misted. For one gold piece, I will tell you anything you'd like to know. I can give you a job offer. I can tell you the history of most anywhere and anyone. And I can find information for you as well.
Orion is very good at this.
And he
If I
just
was playing-
laughs.
If I was playing a Tyrell type rogue right now, I would just walk up, drop a gold in his hand, and say, "How can I get you to leave?"
No. Jiro
Yeah,
has
got
performance
something.
like he probably would have.
Come on, Tyrell. You can do this.
Do it. Whatever you want to do it.
Do it, Tyrell. You can do it.
Jiro has uses and waits for later.
Ugh.
Let's see how the rest of this goes yet.
Mm.
Example. I'm waiting to see where it goes.
He just looks at the group of you. All right.
Perhaps for a gold piece, you could tell me how to get that good at stroking my own ego.
And he just looks at you. I'll tell you that for free. Be the best at what you do.
Rude.
And he
The
just
best.
puts his hands up. I'm willing to prove my services if that's what you're asking.
Sure. Then Mistin's going to produce egg.
Oh no.
You've just been carrying the egg around this whole time, right?
It's been
It's
in his pocket.
Because it's
Like
about the
it's been
size,
in.
a little bit bigger than your paw.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I haven't been actually carrying it in my hands. It has been transferred back and forth between my pouch and my hands.
And he takes a look at it, looks at you, and puts his hand up.
If this egg gets damaged at all, you will be losing fingers.
And he just looks at you. I'm not looking for the egg. My services have costs.
Mistin's going to roll her eyes, reach back into the pouch, and pull out a gold piece and drop it in his hand.
And he takes it, tucks it in a pocket, and you hear tap, 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 pats his pocket. That's an egg.
Listen, it surely is. Can you tell me anything about the egg?
And he just kind of leans in, looks at it. Well, is it warm?
It's quite warm.
It'll hatch soon.
Delightful. Could you tell me if perhaps this came from a turtle? Excuse me, a turtle.
No, it's not a turtle egg.
What would you posit it came from?
And he just looks at you. Well, I know for a fact you didn't lay this. And the closest thing to what that is, and he points to Nomad, is about on the scale of what this guy is.
No, Nomad just like
I no longer
like-
want the egg.
Nomad just says, "I did not lay that."
And he just turns around. Don't take it personally, big guy. I'm just saying, ain't too many of those. What you have there is a dragon egg.
Why did you cut out when you told me what I wanted to know?
He said what I knew he was going to say this whole time.
He
No,
smiles.
repeat it. Repeat it because you legitimately cut out and I didn't get to hear what you said.
What you have there is a dragon egg.
Miss is going to roll her eyeballs because there's no way. You're definitely pulling my tail now.
And he just smiles and you can believe me or not, but I would not recommend getting rid of the shell once it hatches.
Why would I save the shell?
Because it's worth a lot of money.
Eyeballs narrow. And then Misted's going to nod because it's good advice.
He just looks at her. You have no idea what you just got, did you?
Listen, there was a lot of pressure and there were so many birds and I didn't know what I wanted, so I didn't pick. I picked egg because it could have been anything. Okay? I don't
Now
do
you've
well
got to
making
deal
these
with
kinds of
this.
decisions.
The more concerning part about all of this is the fact you thought it was a turtle.
Listen.
Oren just
I'm
looks at
still-
Tyrell. I don't think she's ever seen a turtle egg before.
She had a turtle.
She had
Not
a
an
turtle?
egg.
What happened to the turtle?
They made me
He
put it
probably
back.
got eaten by a crocodile by this point, but
Oh, no,
I'm
that's
not
fair.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it was a
good
swamp
to know.
turtle.
He's,
Tyrell, how close to Sinfori are you sitting?
he's not.
Nowhere near over against a wall, like just leaning down.
Okay, you're safe. You're about to get tail smacked upside the head.
Trust me, it would have no effect.
He's been through
No, but it's like a
worse.
gib smack. It's like a gib smack, though.
Tyrell has been through a lot worse.
Yeah,
I
and he
believe it.
just sits there and pats the pocket again. Well, it's a dragon. It's not a very big dragon. Typically, those will probably grow to only be about maybe 1.5 feet, 2 feet long, on average.
Misty's going to look at her paw and the egg in the paw.
Yeah.
What?
And he just smiles. The inside of that egg is full of gems. Well, raw gemstone.
Back up. I bought a pygmy dragon?
No, you bought a stardust dragon.
A what?
He just
So
looks at you.
that was a legitimate question.
You have really got no idea what you're doing.
Listen, I am not the animal expert here. I know lots of things. I just don't know these things.
And he just smiles. You're right, you're not the animal expert. That would be, and he pulls out a piece of paper and begins reading.
Is he reading out loud?
No,
Well, the miss is just going to eyeball him because she doesn't know what he's doing. Because she didn't get to see the paper trick.
He stops. He stops for a moment. Ah, Trenla, that was her name, and puts the paper away.
Misted, I was about to say, Misted's gonna make a grab for that paper.
He's across the room from you, and you're sitting down.
Misted can launch. She can fail, but she can launch.
Misted is busy protecting the queen. Misted won't launch.
An egg.
Yeah, you're right. The egg is probably the only thing preventing me at this point. Centauri can take care of herself, but I just don't like him.
He just smiles. What you have there is called a Stardust Dragon egg. As it grows in the egg, it eats the inside of the egg. Just like most things that grow in an egg. They grow bigger, they consume. And once it gets big enough, it eats a hole through the egg. And if
This
you
is
take it to the right person, you can crack it open and sell it for money. Because those are precious gemstones in there.
Misted's going to like hardcore clutch the egg. Like, why would I crack it open? There's a baby dragon in there.
Once it hatches,
So does it just eat gemstones? Is that what it eats?
yes,
That's it?
any quality. Though it prefers the higher quality.
I fear I may have bought an expensive pet.
Indeed.
I'm not funding your pet.
It also eats metal, stone, rock.
Nomad
Okay,
takes a step back.
Misted's going to breathe a sigh of relief because at least we have emergency food supply.
Nomad just says, I would appreciate if you kept it away from me.
Cat pout.
He just smiles. Don't worry, they're very tiny. They're rather small, like I said, about 2 foot on average.
See,
They don't
Nomad,
eat much.
It only take little nibbles, Nomad.
Nomad says, if it attempts to eat me, I will attack it.
Once again, clutching the egg. Fine, I will keep it fed. But I'm not putting this one back.
And he just kind of looks at you. Well, once it hatches, that'll be impossible.
Well, I suppose it would be mighty hard to find the man I bought it from, but I wouldn't say it was impossible.
Oh no, it's impossible.
How do you figure?
Well, it knows who carries it. I don't know how. No one can really explain it. But it knows who carries it. And once it hatches, that's it. It is bound to you for the rest of your life. You could try and give it away. It won't work.
At this point, Misted is deep in thought because now she's trying to think of a name because Eggleton for a dragon simply won't do. You've lost Misted again. She has now no thought behind those eyes, or rather, too much thought.
See,
And then he turns towards Nomad. How about you, big fella? Anything you'd like to know? And holds his hand out.
Nomad says
Nomad
no.
would kind of ponder for a second and then say, "The questions I have, I doubt you have the answers to."
Couldn't hurt to try.
Except it could cost you a gold piece for no information.
Never said that's how it worked. Now you're just assuming.
Nomad will think again for a moment. And take out a gold piece. And walk over and drop it in his hand.
Okay. He keeps his hand open.
The Nomad will look at him and say, "How much do you know about the Slicks?"
He closes his hand, tucks the gold coin in his pocket. Pat, pat, pat. Well, from what I know, a lot of it came from your Blue Friends reports here. Slicks are those oil-like creatures that came from another plane or the world, and seem to be invading into this one through tears and rifts that can appear pretty much anywhere. And they seem to attack people and consume them, taking their form, their shape, and at some points evolving. Now, the more things that they consume and evolve into, the harder it is for them to maintain a singular form. So, if they evolve, they get stronger. If they get stronger, it's harder to fool anyone that they're not just people. Aside from that, they seem to not have a consciousness of their own. They just seem to follow orders. They seem to have a very tactical mindset of swarm and attack. They don't do well in one-on-one situations. They rely on sheer force of numbers more than anything else. We know that they've become aquatic in some points and also can take part on land, so they don't need to breathe, obviously. And from a more recent report, they are quite vulnerable to those that wield the magic of the crowns. So, holy powers, they don't seem to like those. And they have a rather strong immunity, resistance, what have you, to anything cold. And aside from that, they seem to be following no clear order, destination. In fact, it seems that they're just searching for something. Now, what that is, even my sources can't tell me. But I'm pretty sure in time, I could find out. Anything else?
Nomad would say, "Impressive. If I think of another question, I may find you again."
Yep. Sidfori will always know where to find me. After all, she's the only one that can call me like that.
Good job, buddy.
Good job, Buggy. You're welcome.
I'm a little mad that you got a thing to that I did not.
Mm. Yeah, and he sits there and looks around and looks at Sinfori and then passes his gaze over the rest of you. I tell you what, I did hear something on my way from Port Luna over to here. Because I'm on my way to White Shallow, which now that's been postponed for the foreseeable future. But I was passing through Ventures Cross and heard a bit of a rumor. Not sure if it's up your alley or not. But judging by what I do know of your exploits and your adventures, this one's on the house. As I was passing through Ventures Cross, I've heard rumor and word about, for the last several months, about a tournament underground that gets held. And Sinfori, despite her understanding of this information that I told her prior, has tried to send Blood Onyx and whatnot to compete in this tournament for a chance at the top prize. which is rumored to be an audience with the leader of the White Stag himself, along with an assortment of rare items that they have acquired through various means. And this is the top prize for anyone that can defeat their current champion.
Mommy, which prize?
A great prize, Orion.
What great, Mom?
You're about to find out. Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the champion of this particular tournament has apparently appeared in recent months and is undefeated and is apparently some kind of great monstrosity. Just an absolute terror to behold, but does not care for wealth, does not care for power, or does not care for any kind of reward or prize or anything. Seems to just exist for the thrill of bloodshed, violence, and killing. But if I were a more lenient betting man, I'd say that if anyone were to know the underground works, it'd be the Night Father of the White Stag. Perhaps that might be a place for you to investigate at some point.
Interesting.
He just shrugs. Whether you do or don't, that's no qualm to me. But if you have any other questions, I'll be at my house. I bid you all good evening. Oh, as he stands up, he looks at Misted. For your personal questions, find me at the house. I'm sure Sinfori can tell you how to get there. And then gives a little nod to everyone. And I'll keep you informed, Sinfori. If I know anything, you'll know it. She smiles. Thank you, Orin. He gives a very elaborate bow and then proceeds to exit and shut the door behind him.
Misted is still hardcore focused.
I mean, he kind of goes on you.
And Sinfori gives a smile at that. Negative.
Negative.
Nomad? Anything?
No.
Alright. Sinfori looks around to the group of you all. Well, it's been a long day, and it's going to be an even longer day tomorrow. I think I'll retire for the evening. And she stands up. He really is worth every gold piece. He may be insufferable and a pain in my ass, but he is very good at what he does. If you ever need work, I'm sure he knows of someone somewhere. Good evening, everyone. Sleep well.
When she says this, Tyrell would go to stop her for a second.
Yes?
When you have a minute, I would like to talk to you in private about a few things.
She thinks for a moment. Best not tonight, but I will let you know.
Works for me.
She nods, and then she goes to leave and closes the door behind her. So it is now the three of you stooges in a room with a fireplace and really comfy couches, all by yourselves.
Nomad looks at the others and says, I think I'll retire to our room for the evening. Then nods and walks off in that direction. He's dead.
Correct. He's dead.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but our room does not have a fireplace.
I'm sorry?
So correct me if I'm wrong, but our room does not have a fireplace.
No, it has a bath.
Misty's going to take a moment to curl up in front of the fireplace because fuck you.
Okay. You have free roam of the castle.
Correct, but at the moment, Misty is pretty comfy cozy right here. About what time of day is it? Or evening, I should say.
Currently,
Yes.
it is 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah, Misty's probably gonna chill out here for about a half hour.
Okay. Tyrell?
If that's wrong,
Mm.
get up. I figure it hasn't been too long. Head out the door and start going after Orin.
All right. Easy enough. You see him traipsing about, heading towards his house.
You better go all around.
Yep.
Tyrell sees him, and he doesn't quite notice Tyrell yet. He'd just call out, Orion.
And he smiles and pivots on his heels.
E
Yes, Tyrell.
E E.
This would be a long time, isn't it?
To be fair, you
It's-
did say his name wrong.
He's been saying mine wrong for a long time now.
He really did.
He started this endeavor. I just refuse to back down.
That's fair.
It's
Tyrell would accompany him and say,
you.
Orion.
headed back to his house.
Did you following him to his house?
Yep, Tyrell would catch up with him and assume he's going back to his house and just tell him he's got some more questions.
All right.
And I've got gold to pay.
He smiles. Well, you got the gold. I've got information. And proceeds to, again, walk to his house. Opens up the front door and strikes a match and begins lighting the candles around. Lights a chandelier, sorry. And yeah, yes, the chandelier comes to life. Prepare to fight.
Yeah.
But he grabs the bag, which has thumped onto the floor, heaves it up onto a table, and opens it up before reaching over. And there's a cabinet, like a low cabinet, and he opens up the doors, and inside looks to be a safe. And as he opens up the bag, it is completely filled with gold coins.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
And judging by the size of this bag, there's probably a good couple thousand gold in there.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me any, honestly.
And he just opens the safe, begins to put the bag in there, and is like, fuck it. And then just steps back and kicks the fucking bag in and slams the door shut. I'll sort it out later.
I'm surprised you got it to fit.
All it takes is the right little bit of motivation. Most things will work.
That's fair.
And he plops down, pulls the jacket tight, leans back, looks at Tyrrell, and, well, it'll cost you a gold. And that's where we're going to pick up next week.
Yay.
All right.